Don't underestimate the things that I will do. There's a fire starting in my heart, reaching only what reaches, bringing me under.
When I was living in Montreal for many years, I chose to live with roommates. I did a lot of mistakes that I regret sometimes, but I didn't learn a lot from living with people. I realized that I prefer living with people than living alone. Now, living with my wife and one roommate, but completely changes the dynamic of living with people, because it becomes sort of like, this is one of the reasons we usually didn't want to live with couples when we were living sort of like with roommates, because sometimes they would make things complicated, or they would fight and so on, and it will just become isolated from the rest of the group. And of course sometimes relationships would form and you can't control that. Of course, I don't mean to sound like a dictator, but it's different. I've never, with the roommates that I've been living with here, been able to get close to anyone, and I can't say that Denmark has actually changed me for the better. It's actually made me more reserved and more shy. Enough that I come from a very extroverted family, and I was always the more quiet one. Not that I was introverted necessarily. Maybe I'm a little bit of both. I don't really know how true when they say that everybody is like extroverted, introverted. I don't know if that's true or not, but I do believe that everybody has a bit of both, and maybe some people are more introverted or extroverted, but definitely, even an extroverted person needs time to read and so on, and be alone and recharge. Although extroverted people will usually recharge more with other people around. So I don't know. I've always had a hard time placing myself, but I definitely find that sometimes being around in a group I would get recharged, and sometimes I would recharge alone. So I guess I've always been a little bit of both. Here I just find that I'm getting too much time alone, and when I do actually want to hang out with new people, it's been longer than it used to be, because I used to see multiple people who would actually sometimes bring their friends over to the house. So there's always somebody to talk to if I wanted to, even if they weren't my close friends. There were friends of friends and so on in the house. I am French Canadian, from the English part of Canada, but anyways, it's normal to social and small talk in a very North American kind of way. You talk about nothing but just talk sometimes, and here it's not in the culture. So if you try to start small talk in the street, people are gonna actually look at you like you're insane, and why is this crazy person trying to talk to me in the street? People will talk about the weather for half a second and stuff with people they know, but it's just different. It's just more reserved. And so I'm not getting my fix of that, and it drives me kind of crazy, actually, especially when I'm having a bad day. Especially when I'm having a bad day. There's also like the language barrier, because I haven't been so great at learning Danish. People, although everyone speaks English very well here, they don't like to have as much as the long conversation is the second language, which I understand. There's the same thing in Quebec with French and English, and some people, you know, feel more comfortable with Quebecois with their first language, and some people feel more comfortable with English, and it can be very tiring to speak a second language. I understand that everyone in Denmark who's Danish, or sometimes there's some people who aren't from Denmark as well, who, you know, English is also their second language, so I was very fortunate to learn English when I was young, so it's not hard for me to speak English, but it is also my second language, even if I'm from the English part of Canada, but both my parents are French-Canadian, but also speak English sort of mixed with French sometimes because they've been living in an English part of Canada for a while, but they're both, the first languages are also French. For example, if I meet somebody when I'm out and I speak with my French-Canadian accent, people sort of bring me over. This happens a lot for people who are French-Canadian, Quebecois, etc., Acadians, Franco-Ontarians, and so on. When they go to talk to people from France, they just invite them because they find that the people with the French-Canadian accent are funny. So even then, when I've had chances maybe to make friends with people from France, the culture is very different, and people are just sort of inviting you to laugh at your accent and not actually listening to actually what you're saying. They're just kind of, to them, you sound like some person from 400 years ago. I've been told it's sort of similar between Spanish in South America versus Spanish in Spain, and Portuguese in Brazil, and, for example, Portuguese-speaking people in Portugal. There's been a disconnect, and people focus. Now I'm eating because I'm trying to multitask, and I am the cliche of stereotypes of the guy who cannot do two things at the same time. But I needed to rant, so I'm ranting. And also, I've also found that, like, when you have a sort of North American accent, there's also people from the UK or whatever have some people, not everybody of course, there's this kind of, you know, you sort of get put in the box with North American annoying accent person who's from far away kind of thing. It hasn't happened that much. It doesn't happen as much as the French people, because they really think that the North American French accent is hilarious. It's not as bad in English. But still, yeah, you know, the two languages that I can speak properly, you know, you always feel like an outside, but it's weird. You feel more connected. Sometimes hanging out with an American or a Canadian just feels, you know, like it feels like warm, like sort of like eating like poutine or some kind of like a local dessert or food where you come from kind of thing. It's like a little touch of home. And I have to admit it's nice to hang out occasionally with people. But I haven't managed to make any actual close friends since I've lived here. Of course, I'm new. I'm not expecting. I'm not that impressive. I live a pretty boring life. I'm not a musician. I don't, you know, I'm not the coolest person in the world. I'm just an average guy. But yeah, it's weird. There's like a lack of connection with people here. And I'm hoping it's a hump that it'll get better. This is what I'm really hoping, because there's nothing. Some spots. Yeah, there's nothing connecting right now. So hopefully, now that I'm 35, I still don't know how to shave apparently. It's weird, like anyone else who's been like going into like, you know, mid-30s or anything, you guys notice that there's like more wrinkles and your body is more sore when you do something stupid the night before, or you're like, don't stretch, you know. I don't think most people want to admit this, but yeah, you definitely feel a difference between, let's say, 25 and 35. Not that I'm in great shape. I'm sure that people, they say that 35 is supposed to be like the prime of your life, and I'm sure people who are 60 and 70 feel a lot more like their bodies are in rough shape and so on. I guess it depends also what you eat, you know, if you exercise and so on, but we also need a new bed. You know, on the list of things to do when Vince gets a full-time job. But yeah, I just feel a bit sore. Anyways.